Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Loudon from Total Health Conferencing, and I'm here with another episode of Inspired. Tonight, we're going behind the coat of a wonderful couple that I've gotten to know and work with over the years, and that you all will come to hear are really people that can inspire you on multiple levels, how they manage their personal life, their marriage, their children, their passions, and how they bring all of those things into their profession. So I'm joined tonight by Doctors AIain and Monica Mita, both co-directors of experimental therapeutics at Cedars-Sinai. And tonight is really meant to just be us having a conversation, learning a little bit more about them, whetting the appetite of people who are interested in knowing more about developmental therapeutics, about being married to medicine, about how to manage through all the things that we've all been experiencing together. And so Monica, AIain, I'm going to go first names only tonight since this is meant to be very informal and friends talking. And I want to thank you both for being with us.
We want to thank you for having us. It's a pleasure.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I'm going to start kind of at the beginning because, seeing that this married couple is together co-directing such an important division at such an incredible institution. I want to get to how you got there, but that really starts with how did you meet, and tell me the story of all the way up to getting married.
You have a lot of time on. Okay.
So I guess I will start. So we actually met in high school. We met at age 14, and I have to say that all the time. AIain was a little bit shorter than I was, because girls are taller at that age, but he was a great colleague, and we actually collaborated on some projects at school and even some tests, but don't say that to anybody. So we were really good friends during high school, not dating or anything, not, having any romantic relation. And then after high school, we got admitted both into the medical school. So we don't have college in Romania, so we go directly from high school to medical school. So at age 19, we both were in medical school. So at that moment, we basically seen each other and we started talking, and it became more involved in just the friendship. And in the 5th year of medical school, we got married. So medical school in Romania has 6 years of studying, not only 4. So that's the story. Anything you like to add?
Yeah, I mean, our friends didn't believe us when we started dating in medical school. They said, oh, you were hiding all this time, you were dating all this time, and we didn't know. But no, we started dating after knowing each other for 4 years and as friends. And then, yes, as we knew each other more and we spent more time together, and she got a great haircut at one point. So I don't know, something triggered it, and it became much more involved. So
That's wonderful. So from early on, you guys knew, well, at least your friends knew that there was a soulmate connection there because they could see that this was a good match. And then how did you make the decision to leave Romania and come to the United States? Was that right after medical school?
It was right after medical school. So it was hard. Around, I think, the 3rd year in medical school, we had what you all know about the Romanian Revolution, where the tyrant was removed from power and eventually killed. And at that point, we all thought that we're going to have our liberty. It's not going to be communism anymore. We're going to be able to speak up and have, the type of privileges that American people have, liberty of speech, liberty of religion, liberty of press, and all that, which in Romania we didn't have at that time. So for a few weeks, we were very happy about what was happening. And that was again in 3rd or 4th year of medical school. Unfortunately, all this revolution was kind of for nothing because things were not changed dramatically. So at that point, when we decided to get married and also, what will happen with our life, and we were talking about that, we decided that at one point we need to leave the country, not so much for us, but eventually for the next generation that will come, for them to have better opportunities and really live a life of liberty, which again, at that point, Romania was not.
And to just add a couple of things, is that we kind of knew that we couldn't live under the communist regime. And during medical school, we had the thought that eventually we will have to leave the country and, seek for our freedom, as Monica said. So for, a few months after, the fall of the communist regime, we thought that maybe things can change from the inside, and we wanted to be part of the change. And then there was some disappointment, of course, and we still felt that we have to leave, and we did. So we had an opportunity of moving to France and do some studying there, and we took that opportunity, and we never looked back, and we have no regrets.
So you went from Romania to France before coming here?
Correct.
Yes.
So we did part of our medical and specialty training in France for 10 years actually in France. And it was a very good experience, and we learned a lot. And when we finished specialty training in France, we have another opportunity for coming to the United States to do more research and more training in clinical research. And that's when we moved to San Antonio, and it was an extraordinary experience.
Right.
Yeah, so what we've done in San Antonio was a second fellowship that was called the Drug Development Fellowship, where we basically learn how to do drug development and how to run studies, and why early phase studies, especially in oncology, are so important. So that was the route. In France, we did our residency and fellowship. So we're fully trained oncologists in France. And here we completed a second fellowship at the University of San Antonio Health Science Center, CTRC. And after remaining on staff there for about 5 years and leading the phase 1 group for a while, we were recruited at Cedars to build the phase 1 and the experimental therapeutic program. And we moved here in 2011, so it's been almost 9 years.
Okay. Monica, just being a daughter, a sister, a friend, how was it leaving, knowing that maybe you would not go back, you would not keep roots there, even thinking about the next generation? It must have been very difficult.
It was difficult. It was difficult to leave the friends and the family. I have no sisters, so I was an only child, very, very close to my parents. So that was very difficult. Knowing, and when we left, we had no idea if we're gonna return to visit, when we're gonna return to visit, if they could come and visit us. So it was so emotional, I will say, at that point. And we're very young, we're like 20-something years old. So,
and keep in mind that we also were living in communist Romania, that at that time we're not allowed to travel. So we knew very little about Western civilization, and our information was very restricted by the regime. So we really had no idea what we are getting ourselves into. So it was a hard decision, and emotionally, as Monica said, it was very, very difficult to leave knowing that you may never come back. We also had uncertainties because we didn't know if we were going to succeed, and we were afraid that we may fail and we may need to come back by default because there's no other choice. So it was very, very difficult times. And
but what's so nice is you had each other. I mean, people make that decision all the time, leaving. I have friends who left Cuba, leaving places, but they're truly on their own. They're on their own. They come into a community of people that are from the same place, but they're not family, they're not friends, they don't know each other. But this, at least you had each other to say, you know what, we're going to step out and we're going to see what happens. And I love that you went to France first. Was that totally eye-opening? Was being in France like nothing you had ever imagined?
It was not completely by accident. We actually had some great people who helped us. It was actually my godmother, who was the best friend of my parents in medical school, who was actually a political refugee who had fled Romania, communist Romania, and had managed to have a wonderful career in France. So she just retired. She was a very well-known medical oncologist in Paris. And she is the one who encouraged us actually to make this move and this jump. And she was actually the one who helped us to find a small grant for young students who want to learn something new. So we had a seed money for a few months in France, and that's how we moved to France, knowing that this is going to only be for a few months, and then we're going to have to find other ways and other means to continue our education and to become physicians and all the other things. So and that's how it's all happened.
I will add that she was very helpful, not only finding this little grant or helping us to discover, another country, but she also opened our eyes about oncology. Because at that time, we're talking 1993, when we moved from Romania to France. At that time in Romania, oncology was nothing. We did not have any drugs, any chemotherapy. Probably the only drug we had was 5-FU. The people were really dying, and all the doctors that were actually graduating were scared to do oncology. And I think we talked at one point about what specialty we would like to do. And we both said we'll do anything but oncology at one point.
This is so true.
So that a life that's completely changed with like opportunities and eyes opening and people around across the road is, yes, it's very interesting.
And we both, and quite frankly, you are quite exaggerating. We had 3 drugs. We had adjuvant, which is platinum, and that was it. And all cancers were treated like this. And oncology in Romania at that time, when we did our training in Romania, it was very, very sad, very depressing, because it was very basic equivalent of death sentence and hospice referral. We both looked at each other and said, we couldn't do that for the rest of our lives. So I will do any specialty but oncology.
Yeah.
And then when we moved to France, we were in one of the top research hospitals in France. And that was for us, a very lucky situation where we discovered what modern oncology meant. And at that time, in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was when all this revolution in oncology happened with the targeted therapies and the molecular biology and the understanding of, the origins of cancer, and all these new treatments were coming. And we were in the middle of that. And it was such a discovery and eye-opening experience that, wow, oncology it can be quite different from what we've seen and what we've learned. And we were so passionate about what we're doing and seeing how you can impact on the life of these people, and the outcomes were becoming so different from what you would expect. It's, wow, this is extraordinary. This is what we want to do. It really became a passion.
Yeah.
And so you go from France to San Antonio, which is another extreme jump in terms of every possible thing you can think of. It's like Texas, such a place to land as the first spot in the United States. And you said that you didn't get recruited to Cedars until 2011. So you had your kids in San Antonio.
So our son, Stefan, was actually born in Toulouse. So we did our residency in Paris and our fellowship in Toulouse. So we were still in Toulouse when Stefan, our first child, was born. And yes, the girls were born in San Antonio after we arrived there. So 2006 and 2003 and 2006. And we moved here when the little one was 5-year-old. So.
Yeah. So was that, now you're in San Antonio, and were you both working similarly as like co-directors, or were you both in as part of a greater team in San Antonio?
We were in training. So although we were fully trained physician in France and we were board certified and specialty trained there, this was an advanced fellowship specifically for young oncologists who want to learn more about clinical research. And they teach you a lot about, methodology of clinical research, about clinical trial design, about statistics for clinical trials. And it's the first fellowship of its kind at that time. Now there are several in different places in the United States, but that was the first one to be established. And it was a wonderful experience. And it's a place where a lot of the leaders of the modern oncology have trained, actually. They trained dozens of physicians who are now practicing around the world, and many of them are leaders in their places. And it was fantastic. And the mentorship was great there. Dr. Eric Rowinski was the director of the program, and two other wonderful physicians there, Dr. Chris Matimoto, Dr. Anthony Dolger, and others. So it was really, we learned extraordinary, things, and it was a huge step forward in our career.
And so when Cedars reached out, because I think you said that they recruited you, Cedars recruited you from San Antonio. Yeah. Was it a big decision to leave where you first stopped in the United States and head to California?
It was a big decision. So we've been in San Antonio almost 10 years, between the fellowship and then, staying as a staff physician and helping with studies and, basically building clinics. I worked a lot on breast and sarcoma. Alan worked a lot on lung cancer. So it was very interesting. We're very passionate. Again, we are very passionate about what we're doing. So when they recruited us, I think the initial discussion started probably 2-3 years before we actually moved there. And we were not convinced that we have to move for a long time. But there was also this opportunity to build something from scratch. When we arrived here, Cedars had no phase 1 unit, no experimental therapeutics. So it was a great opportunity to create something. So finally, we decided to do this big step, which it was very interesting. Another great change or experience, but different culture when you talk Romania, Paris, Toulouse, San Antonio, and then Los Angeles.
But we always think that we had 3 lives. We had our life in Romania, our life in France, and our life in the United States. And I always thought that the big jump was from Romania to France. I think after that, things were a little bit easier. I mean, there were, yes, life decisions, but the big jump and the big unknown was when we left Romania. After that, it was fine. And I will tell you, our experience in San Antonio was wonderful. And to everybody here, because we see all this, anxiety in the society and, questioning about equity and racism and all these things. I would tell everybody that, the United States is a wonderful place and opportunities are there for a lot of people. And we felt very welcome when we arrived in San Antonio. We really felt that people are embracing you and your culture, and we loved it. We love our life. Here in LA is the same. We love it.
Well, LA, I mean, what a melting pot. I want to just stop and say, just from a technical perspective, I am having a little bit of problem with your sound. It goes in and out, but I'll let you know the next time it kind of gets choppy. I don't think it's anything you're doing. I think it might just be, the wonderful.
Maybe we should come closer.
But going back to the interview, so, one of the things that I immediately, when I first met Monica, we had invited her to speak for us. And one of the things that I found about her, right away, the first thing she said, I remember, It's not enough time. You didn't give me enough time for the presentation that I want to do. And I remember thinking to myself, is this lady crazy? Like, I have an agenda and I have to fit in all of these times. And she said, yeah, it's not enough time. I need more time for this because it's very exciting. I have many very exciting things that I want to say. And, so weeks go by, or maybe it was a month and a little bit goes by. And I had decided, a few times along the way, she's like, well, if I just had 10 more minutes, this would be a much better talk, or, 20 more minutes. So I thought I have to sit into her talk because I really want to see, what all the hype has been about over these weeks in coordinating her talk. And I sat into her talk. And the thing, Monica, that I think touched me about your presentation was you weren't just a content expert. You could tell right away you're a content expert, but you loved what you were talking about. You loved it, and you wanted all of us in the audience to kind of catch that passion and love what you're talking about. And I think, when you think of phase 1 studies, when anyone outside of phase 1 thinks of phase 1 studies, you kind of think of this heaviness, this statistical value, this, design, like all of these things. But after hearing Monica, it changed the way I thought about the process in which you get to what the rest of the world feels is the exciting stuff. The magic happens in phase 1, where you identify what it is you want to ask, how you want to ask it, what the outcome is intended to be in you asking it. So she changed me when, and I remember sitting there thinking, I wish she did have more time because I would have liked to hear a longer presentation about this. So Monica, I say all of that to ask you to tell the audience, especially those who aren't involved in experimental or developmental therapeutics, just define for us like what the field looks like. What is it looking at, and how is it so integral to the rest of cancer care?
So phase 1, it's the part of clinical developments where drugs are coming to humans. This is the very first time we test the drugs in patients. So the phase 1 are designed to look at how the drug is tolerated and what's the best dose that has the best balance between toxicity and efficacy could be further used for testing. But the phase 1 has the role to not only identify how the drugs are tolerated, but how they're metabolized, what other drugs they are interfering with, how is the drug excreted, is there the food has an impact or not on the drug if it's something that's orally administered. There are so many aspects to phase 1. At the end of phase 1, you want to try to know everything about that drug. You want to know how the drug behaves. You want to know what's the half-life, how long it stays in the body. You want to know how it's metabolized and excreted. You want to know, is there any enzyme from the liver that has an impact on this or not? Because, we hear a lot of newer drugs that are interfering with the CYP3A4 enzymes metabolized by the liver. So that's an enzyme that's also used, for example, by some fruits, like by grapefruit, to be metabolized. So some drugs, when we prescribe them, we say don't eat, grapefruit. Well, before having this phase 1 studies on all these drugs, we didn't know that.
Yeah.
So all this is found mostly in phase 1. And then when we start having responses in phase 1 and start seeing patients that had no other options or very few options responding and doing great, this is the best reward somebody can have.
Yeah.
We have to just see, look back and see how many drugs had great results in phase 1, like Gleevec. People with gastrointestinal stromal tumors had no alternative treatments at that time when Gleevec started. And 1 week on Gleevec, they were back on their feet and they were like playing tennis after being bed rested for months. So this is the type of excitement that you can find in phase 1. But the also reward is to get back the drug to saying further development to phase 2 or phase 3 with the maximum of information.
Yeah.
You don't want to find out in phase 2 or in phase 3 that the patient the drug has an interaction.
Yeah.
It's too late. You're gonna end up losing a lot of money in development, and the drug may not be further developed because you didn't do the right thing in phase 1.
Yeah.
So doing the right phase 1 helps the patient, helps the further drug development, but also helps to continue drug development the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
It's a critical first step.
It's so underestimated. Alan, we're living in these COVID times where I think Dr. Fauci just got on the TV to say that he's confident that by the end of 2021, we'll have at least strong vaccine candidates. How important is phase 1, design and testing when developing something like a vaccine?
Well, again, you can never underestimate, the importance of a phase 1 study. It's really the critical first step where it's kind of the go, no go decision. And, like people say, you can only screw a phase 1 once, because if you don't do the things right, everything else falls apart. So, you can always redo a phase 2 or a phase 3 study. You can change some parameters, but the phase 1, you have to do it right from the beginning. So I can only echo what Monica said, that, we try to learn as much as possible in phase 1 about the drug or about the product, and also to think forward. So how are you going to move it on in phase 2s, in phase 3? What are the lessons that you have to learn here? So then the next step is going to go on well and smoothly. And at the end of the day, what we want to see these drugs succeed, and we want these patients to have new treatment options. So you have to really try to think outside of your narrow field. Oh, I'm just doing my phase 1, and whatever happens after that doesn't matter. No, it matters a lot. And you have to think beyond that. And you're right, for a lot of people, phase 1 are not always the most exciting, because the truth is that you get the fame and the glory when you publish the phase 3 showing a new standard of care, and you do the plenary session of ASCO with that, and everybody knows about you. But for us, when the first time that you're using drug in humans, that is just as exciting. And Monica said, to see a patient, who was told by his physician that there is no other treatment option, there's nothing else for him, and he comes to us, and then he is one of those patients who have a positive response in phase 1. The type of reward that you get with that kind of response is unparalleled. It's and the patients are so grateful for that, and being given that opportunity. It's amazing.
And those patients, when you think about those patients that are the first to test, the first to put themselves, you really think those people are the ones that are sacrificing so much for the greater good, not just for their own disease, but knowing they're going to be the ones that set the stage for whether or not this moves forward. So, when we talk about clinical trials, we always think about, the investigators, and we think about the designers, and we think about the pharmaceutical companies that sponsor. But really, the unsung heroes are the patients, because they aren't guaranteed positive outcomes. And sometimes they have to go through some very scary things in order to kind of move science forward. So I love too that you get to kind of encounter those people right up front, where you're saying, we are about to journey to something that could change practice. And I think that, that's definitely also such an exciting aspect. And to see so early the impact on those patients' lives must be incredible. So I'll tell you, Monica, I appreciate so much what you did for me, at least. We were talking before we went live about our kids, and I was saying, we were talking about hoping that our teenagers find their way. And I was saying sometimes they find their way from a great teacher giving a talk on a great topic. You would be that kind of teacher where, you know, you'd walk in the class going, I don't know, this is the boring stuff. And you'd leave hungry to know more and to dive deeper. So I really appreciate how much you love it and how much passion you bring to the teaching of it. So, you know, let's shift a little bit and talk about our kids. You had, you know, one was born outside the United States, the other two were born here in San Antonio, to a melting pot in San Antonio, and then moved, all three of them moved into a bigger melting pot in Los Angeles. I too am a first generation kid of an Indian and an Irishman. So I know what it's like hearing my parents go, in our country, this isn't, in our country, this isn't. And I'm sure your kids have heard that statement so many times. But talk to us about them. Tell us a little bit about each one of them. Monica, I'll start with you.
Okay. How much time do you have? Of course, they are wonderful. We love them to death. So Stefan is 19. He is now in college, UC Santa Barbara. He is interested in pre-med. So he's trying to do all his credits for that. He's a 6 feet tall guy, strong and you know, kind. He is at this moment is trying to be very independent because he believes he's an adult and is making all his decisions. He doesn't really want to be given advice, but I was told by other parents that this will change and eventually he will realize that he's not really an adult and he still needs his parents here and there. But it was like wonderful to have him home for 3 months. He moved back to college now to do the summer courses that he wanted to do, not because he had to. But I think it was just a sort of escape from home. After 3 months with the sisters and the parents, I'm done. I'm going back.
Yes, yes. And now tell me about your girls.
The girls, little princesses. So Marianne is almost 17. She's extremely bright. She's very creative. She's very ambitious. She's a very calm personality, but when you push some buttons on something that she's interested in, she's not that calm. But otherwise, she's the peacemaker in the family and, you know, between the siblings. She loves animals. But she loves to learn, which it's fabulous. You know, she has as you mentioned before, a hunger to know more about every single subject. She took 6 APs this year. She had a 1570 on the SAT. She's just like, she wants to learn. You just give her something, a subject, and she's gonna know everything about that. And her dream is to go to Yale. So we'll see.
Oh, very good.
And the little one, she's almost 14. She's very athletic. Both Marianne and Adrian are tall, a little bit like their brother. They're both, all three of them taller than me, and I'm 5'7". So they're tall and lean, and she's very athletic. She likes volleyball. She's practicing volleyball weekly. She's extremely bright. She's so smart and funny and always doing something, or always active, always wanting to discover, to see. So they're different personalities. They all have, you know, a balance of good things and bad things, mostly good things. But I think they're human like us. And it's fantastic to have all three of them together, because you can start a conversation at this moment at this age with them regarding, you know, anything. We had a conversation the other day with, you know, starting with Marianne about Romeo and Juliet. You know, so it went on and on and on about, you know, what does it mean and what is exactly the story. And anyway, it was very inspiring. they do not have the same opinion as we have. That is a really fantastic love story. They call it a cautionary tale. So don't commit suicide only because of a love story. That's the bottom line. But yeah, it's very interesting to have all three of them around.
And Alan, when you think about being two doctors with very intense careers, a lot on the line, as you were talking and describing about, you really get one shot with phase 1 studies to do it right. How have you balanced work and life? And not just work and life, but work and life together, married, in the same division, with the same stressors, sometimes probably even on the same days. How have you balanced that over the years?
It wasn't easy, and
Still not.
it's still not, and I'm not sure that we always balanced it very well, and I'll tell you a story about that. But I think the key factor here is that we did support each other, and we really helped each other a lot. And we all have our moments when we're a little bit down, and fortunately we had the other one to count on and to help us through. And it's true that it wasn't easy, and we've always been advised to try not to do the same profession. I said, really, you both want to do medical oncology, it's going to be very hard. You're going to compete for the same, employment position, and it's going to be hard to have you both in the same place at the same time. And yet none of us wanted to give up our dreams, because as I mentioned, it was really a revelation for us to discover modern oncology. And we said, look, we must do what we are passionate about, and we'll deal with the problems as they come. And I think we were able to. Now the life, personal life and professional balance, it's always tough for doctors. And in oncology, it's also very difficult, because oncology patients are, have a lot of needs, and they do require a lot of dedication from their doctors. And you cannot postpone things. You cannot not do the right thing for them at the right time. So that often impacts on your personal life. And, we always tried to have some time for ourselves, and sometimes for our kids, and sometimes for having fun with them, and sometimes for teaching them. But it wasn't always easy. We also were lucky that for many years we have our family to help us, especially her parents were coming and living with us for extended period of time. So they were able to be involved in the education and the care of our kids, which freed some of our time. But no matter how you look at it, the work and personal life balance it's difficult. And I will say one story that, shocked us and told us that, we must do a better job, is that, at one point many years ago, somebody asked our son whether he wants to be a doctor. And he was young at that time, and, a young kid. And he said, I don't know about that. And, the friend asked, why? Well, I would like to have my own life. Mm. And we realized, oh my God, so our kids think that we don't have a life. Kids think that, our life is our job. So from that moment on, we had a long look at each other, and we said, well, we must do a better job and spend more time with our kids, so they will think that, it's not just about work.
Yeah. I hope we are able to do that. But I have to add that I think being in the same profession and like even the same specialty can be really hard, but it's a benefit in a way, because we understand each other. We understand what we're going through every single day. If you have two, persons that have a different profession, they may not understand all the, values that you may want to have when you practice oncology, and specifically phase 1. So if we have moments when, when the kids were younger and they were not driving, some of them, we had to ask ourselves at the end of the day, who goes to pick them up from daycare or from school or from several schools,
from activities,
because it was just one of us. We cannot be both. And every single day we're like doing the same thing. Are you able to go now? Are you going to work more in the evening? Or do you have a patient right now? I will go for you and, pick up the kids. And so it was like a day by day decision. The other thing is like, just imagine you go out for dinner with your husband, or, and you have a phone call from a patient. What do? Do you just go and take the call? Yes, you go and take the call, but your husband or the wife doesn't have to be upset. And that's one of the things that like we learn to do, to decide the requirements of our life and our job. And that's not going to be something that's going to come between us, that we actually have the same um, problems at work, and we understand the problems.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point. I never even really looked at it like that. First, Ellen, when you were talking about your son, kids see and know so much more than we think they do. And I have a little 6-year-old, and the other night I was putting him to bed, and he put up a pillow this way and then put up a pillow this way, and he started pretending that he was typing. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Shh, I'm getting ready for a very important meeting." But it was so cute how he did it. In fact, I took a little video of it, but there was something in the way that he said it to me that made me realize he was mimicking something that I have said to him when he came to get my attention. And now that we're living in COVID-19, where a lot of us are working from home, and the kids are home and they're not used to not having all the time interaction with friends and teachers and all these things, I realized in that moment, I probably have said to him, "Not right now. I'm doing something very important," which to me, even though it was a fun, light moment, made me say to myself, "No, the next time he comes, whatever it is he's saying, no matter how silly, for him, that's very important.
Yes.
Whatever I'm doing can wait. I can take it over." So I love that you guys took that cue from Stefan so young, that this was something that you had to address. And Monica, I never looked at it that being married in the same profession could alleviate some of the things that people in, if you're a doctor married to a lawyer, or a medical education person married to a security guy, we have such different viewpoints of each other's work that it sometimes can cause, disagreements or divides, because you don't realize why the other person is prioritizing. So I really think, for everyone listening, that's such a good takeaway, that marriage requires you to understand the other person's point of view. And in your case, it's easier because you're kind of living parallel with your careers. So thank you so much for sharing those stories, because I think that really, put it into context what you were trying to say. So, I mean, we are living in this post-COVID. I always hate saying post-COVID because, the numbers are going up. We're not post anything yet, but we're living in this post-COVID onset. How has that affected phase 1 labs?
So the phase 1 clinic wasn't really affected. The decision was from the beginning, from the leadership here in the clinical research leadership, to continue the enrollment close to normal, because these are patients that really need treatment. You cannot not give them access to a treatment. So there's some changes in the personnel that's around, so they're taking turns to be on site. We've been on site from day one, so we did not work from home at all. And we continued to offer the studies to any patient that was a candidate and could benefit from it or could participate. It's a little bit different. I'm talking mostly about like CEDAR's rules or cancer center rules. For studies that are non-interventional, these studies were actually placed on hold. Mm-hmm. Or that are interventional but not including a real therapeutic. Like we have some studies including a keto diet for glioblastoma or for other, prostate cancer. These studies stopped for a period of time. Now they're reopening, but with different rules. But the phase 1 has not stopped, basically.
That's good. That's good to hear. Alan, when you think about what this COVID pandemic has done to clinical research as a whole, are you hopeful that we will find a new balance in being able to kind of reinitiate some of the studies in later phases that have halted?
So yes, I'm very confident, and as Monica said, we were lucky and we're very grateful that Cedars made that decision that cancer is not stopping with COVID and research cannot stop with COVID. So really everything that was essential research continued. And yes, it was more difficult for everybody, with people working from home, with us having to take all the extra precautions and the extra steps to make patients feel safe and to keep them safe, and have all the you know um, protective gear on every time you see a patient. And for the patients it was difficult because they were not allowed to bring family and friends with them at the visit, so they were even more isolated than before. So it was more difficult, but we were able to continue to do this work. And I think that now that we understand a little bit better about the virus and about the problems, people are starting to be a little bit more confident that these activities will continue. And oncology drug development will continue, because cancer is still much more deadly than COVID is. So we have to continue. This is an important part of our mission and of what we're doing. And I think both physicians and patients and also administrations from various cancer centers understand that now. And there was always that moment when we are all scared of the unknown and what can be and what can happen. And it's still a problem. I mean, nobody's diminishing the magnitude of this pandemic and what devastating effect it has. But we have to live to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, we have to get back to some type of life.
Sure.
Just like you said, it's
Cancer is a priority.
yeah. And even things like screenings, all the screenings have stopped. I think I heard either the NCI or the NIH director saying, we've got to start preparing for what's next, what's the next pandemic, which will be, patients being diagnosed with cancer at a much later stage, because they did not, it was almost like a halt to screening for 3 months. So it definitely makes you think, the whole system, how we've got to kind of get back to life. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about, get a little personal again and talk about, we all have been home. Travel has been restricted. Where do you want to go? Where are you itching to go when, things start opening again? This time last year, it was either last year or the year before, we were all heading to Puerto Rico together.
Yes.
And I think one of you were speaking, and so it was like life was moving on. Our kids were in the pool together. It was such wonderful. And then all of this happened. So now as you're thinking, I mean, we've had such a greater appreciation put on the things that we do for fun. Where do you want to go when this is lifted?
Don't even get us started, because Monica is the CEO in the family for Chief Entertaining Officer. So planning all of our vacations and all of our trips, and she does a wonderful job at it. And we had some wonderful vacations planned and all fall apart because of COVID. So go ahead.
I will say that the place where I want to go is Peru. So I spent 6 months, really starting last September until March, when everything fell apart, organizing this trip, all 5 of us, to Peru. So I planned everything, 2 days trip to the Amazon, and then Machu Picchu, and then different cities and tours and the train. And I had everything planned, the internal flights, the train, everything. I studied like months.
And we were so excited about it.
That
didn't happen.
It didn't happen. And the second trip, that will go probably on the top list. The second trip we wanted to do this year was to visit Vienna a couple of days and then go to Croatia. We'd never been to Croatia. We heard it's a wonderful place, although it's 1 hour, flight from Romania. We've never been to Croatia. So that's going to happen eventually in the future. Last year, we were able and we're very lucky to go to Greece, also the first time in our life, although it's 1 hour trip from Romania. That was the first time, and the kids loved the trip. So I want to continue to plan these trips, but I would like to somehow be certain that it's going to happen, or I'm not going to have so much, such a hard time canceling and having a refund from everything that we organized. So yeah, it's funny. It's funny.
But in a shorter term, we had to, do other things that we had on our to-do list and our bucket list. So for this summer, we are soon planning to go to visit Yellowstone and Zion as, local vacation with just a road trip with the family. So that's going to also be exciting.
Yeah, I heard recently from actually one of our colleagues here that half of California, this is what they plan to do.
So we're gonna be
There'll
with
be a
this.
big line.
Yes.
There'll be a big line into Yellowstone.
Yes.
It really, as you're talking, I'm thinking it really, everything changed. Everything has changed. And it's changed globally. I always say I've been running these patient advocacy town halls where, I'm pulling in patients and matching them with experts. And it's been really such a great series. But, you experience things like the California fires or 9/11 or hurricanes in the Southeast. And it's always so regional. It's like the world, everywhere else goes on while different pockets experience whatever they're experiencing. But this was like a global shutdown. And so whether you are in Peru, near Yellowstone, in Florida, wherever you are, everything changed for all of us. And I too wonder what, we know what reopening looks like, being able to go to the grocery store and Target and movies and whatever these things. But I wonder what reopening really will look and feel like for things like family vacations to Peru.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's put so much more value on the things that we once took so for granted. Because just before this, at the end of January, it wasn't the end of January, it was Valentine's, because my husband came over and met me. I was in California, so I'm in Florida, and it's like the coast to coast is a big trip. But I was in California, and my husband came over to meet me for Valentine's Day, and we went to the California redwood forest.
Beautiful.
It was so breathtaking. But I often think, because that trip was the last family thing we did. I did a program in Memphis for work, which was the last travel I did. But I think back to standing in that forest and feeling so small, like looking around to these massive, beautiful redwoods. Mm-hmm. The air quality was different. The sound quality was different. Everything about it was it was mesmerizing. It was so beautiful. And I often wonder if I could just get back there. Like the value that I would place on the same moments would be so much more intense. So Monica, I hear you when you are thinking about Peru and the Amazon and all of these beautiful trips. And I know we will get back to being able to kind of move around freely.
I'm sure.
Well, in these last moments, we've got about 7 minutes left, and I want to ask you, I know this is a question that Monica's been dreading because she doesn't know necessarily how to answer. So I'm going to even give you a few more minutes by asking Alan first. Alan, what do most people not know about you? It could be a hobby, it could be something you collect, it could be anything, a talent. What do most people not know about you?
Okay, well, I love fishing. I consider myself a good amateur fisherman, and I rarely come home empty-handed. although it did happen a few times. I don't have enough time and energy nowadays to do that, but I still enjoy it every time I have an opportunity. I considered when I was younger to have a career in arts, and actually I won a painting competition when I was age 10 or something like that. So for a short time, I considered doing an artistic career, but my parents said, you know, arts in Romania have no future. You want to paint portraits of our leader. That's what you want to do in your life. And so I gave up that pretty quickly. And other hobbies, you know, I love opera, and Monica loves opera. I like singing, but I'm very bad at it. And actually, people don't know that I won the grand prize from the worst karaoke of the night in San Antonio. So
That is a great, most people don't know. I love it. I love it. That is fantastic. That is fantastic. So Monica, it's all you, my friend.
Okay. Well, I think I love swimming. I think I'm a pretty good swimmer. I love to cook. I could spend hours in the kitchen, tried several recipes. I love French
A
cooking.
favorite food, a favorite kind of food to cook?
Oh, well, there, I will say there's several, but you know, we do a lot with the kids' desserts. So they like tiramisu, for example. We do that several times in like a period of time. What else? I'm not that artistic, although I played the violin for a while in Romania, but did not.
you're a great dancer. She
Well,
did ballet as a kid, and
Ah,
she still has. She's a very good dancer. I can barely keep up.
that's wonderful. That is, those are really good things that most people don't know, which, you know, the whole essence of this series was really to kind of get connected. We're all so disconnected right now. Even before COVID, we were moving into a disconnect. We may be connected technologically, but we posted what we wanted others to see, and we commented on what we wanted others to think we thought about things. But this was really a series dedicated to kind of getting into spending an hour together with people, just being real, and you know, taking a look at who they were and what motivated them and what drove them. And so as we round out this, I do want to say I have loved meeting both of you. I met Alan when Monica hurt her back. And I said, one of my team said to her, do you know anyone who could stand in for you with this topic? And she said, I know a great person who could stand in. And she said his name is AIain Mita. And we were like, any relation? And so he came and stood in. And that was so wonderful because we got to meet him too. And we struck up such a great friendship. We appreciate so much of what you do for us, for education, for outreach. And we've now got to spend time with both of you, getting to know you each a little better. So I hope you've enjoyed the time that you spent together with us.
it was great. Thank you so much for inviting us. We had so much fun, and we really appreciate, you know, knowing you and having you as a friend and participating in some of the events that you're planning. And we, you know, like to volunteer for the future whenever
And
you need us.
and you are very modest. You are doing a fantastic
Yes.
job and a very important job. And you know, educating people about all these breakthroughs in oncology is so critical. And you are doing such a fantastic job at it. So thank you.
Thank you.
We
Well, we
appreciate
enjoyed
the invitation. We're very honored.
I have a fabulous team, and we love what we do, and we love who we meet. So it makes it much easier. And I feel like what I want to start doing is planning events. I don't even care about the agenda. I'm going to start planning events where we want to go.
Right.
And then just make it all about that. Okay, so we're heading to Sedona, we're heading to the rainforest, we're heading to all these places, and we'll do a little education while we're there. So we'll try to marry those two things.
So Peru next time?
Yes, Peru, yes. You can co-chair a meeting in Peru, and we'll make it happen. Well, I thank both of you, Monica and Alan. I wish you both the best with all the things that you do. I send great blessings and prayers over you and your family to stay safe, and for all of those kids who I've come to know to grow strong and smart and continue along their way. And I thank you for everything you do, and look forward to a time where we are sitting poolside with margaritas somewhere in the world together. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Great seeing
Bye.
you. Thank you. Bye.